for the audience that's listening, like what is the message here? Like, how can they recreate this moment of transformation without going up 19,000 feet?
I mean, what I have found for my own personal journey, you know, I grew up in the United States. I worked in corporate America, and I was so disappointed with where my life had gone. And I was so upset that I chased the North American dream and it didn't work out. And there was no manual to say, this is what you do when your dreams don't come true and when things don't work out. And that was when a friend of mine invited me to go on my first trip to Kenya.
Yeah.
So that was like my first Kilimanjaro. It's
Right.
like, oh, I'm getting outside of my comfort zone. I'm doing something I've never done before, because what it does is it forces me to be present in my body and to listen to what's happening. And that's when I started to feel like, oh, suddenly I was becoming passionate about international development. I knew nothing about it before then, but suddenly I had all these questions and was really excited about it. And so, you know, one of the chapters in my book is discover who you are somewhere else. And that doesn't mean you have to go to Tanzania or Kenya or
Right.
Kilimanjaro, but it could be maybe you take a sewing class.
Yeah.
Maybe you pick up a new sport. Maybe you take a class on AI. Like whatever that thing is for you, is to just break up your routine and get yourself out of that day to day and to slow down and to get still. Maybe it is meditation, whatever that is. But there's a voice in here. It's always there.
Yeah.
But it's whether we choose to listen to it or not. And that will tell you what you need if you take the time to understand it. And I think for me, that's what I did, is every time that I got outside of my comfort zone and did something different, whether it was large or small, that's where the magic happened. That's where I discovered all of these things about myself.
Welcome back to Momentum with Sidekick. Today's episode is a bit of a special one to me. I had the opportunity to climb Kilimanjaro a couple months ago. And like many people, I went into that adventure thinking it was a physical and sure, a bit of a mental challenge. But what I came home with was actually so much more than I had expected. So ever since I found myself in this kind of dying need to chat with other people who have done the same thing and see if we kind of can share some learnings and just chat about kind of what that experience was like. So I am very honored to be joined today by Spencer West, an author, keynote speaker, content creator, and a globally recognized disability advocate whose story has inspired people around the world. And Spencer climbed Kili in 2012 to raise awareness and funds for clean water to communities in East Africa. And on that climb, he was joined by one of his close friends, Alex Meers, an organizational development strategist with over 13 years in management and HR leadership roles, ranging across nonprofit, for-profit, private, and IPO companies. And Alex recently, or currently, is finding himself in a bit of a re-navigating career transition, if I might say so, and is currently finding himself revisiting many of those lessons from Kili in 2012. So even though we climbed the mountain so many years apart, I feel like in even the first conversation that we had so many things in common and so many like shared lessons that we took home from that experience. So today we're exploring some of those lessons that we learned on the mountain that I feel like can hardly ever happen in a boardroom, right? So they happen when you step away from your routines, from your day-to-day, and maybe even mostly when you don't expect them. So we'd love to start with you, Spencer. Like,
Sure.
What at the time motivated you, drove you to go and climb Kili?
Yeah, you know, we didn't do it for like personal glory. Like for us, you know, I was working for this social enterprise, and my job was to like speak on behalf of them. So I was traveling 200 days out of the year, and I wasn't getting time with my friends, which I really missed. And that sort of helps recharge my batteries. And on the flip side, you know, my job was to empower people to create awareness campaigns and to fundraise on things that they cared about. But I was just talking about it. I didn't have the experience to back it up. And I thought, I can't keep telling people to do something that I've never done. I had this like passion, but there needed to be a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So one of my bosses had said they'd climbed Kilimanjaro and said, "Have you ever thought about that?" And I was like, "No, like, it's the
No,
last
are
thing
you
I want to
crazy?
do."
Yeah.
And then a week later, I was like, "I want to do it." And so I came to Alex and our other friend Dave, and I was like, "I want to do this thing, but I can't. There's no way I can do this by myself. Will
Right.
you join me?" And then we came up with our campaign, which was to raise $500,000 for clean water, because at the time, East Africa was facing one of the largest droughts he'd seen in over 60 years. And we had all been there. I spent every summer there while I was working there. And it was sort of my second home. And it's
Yeah.
sort of what brought me to this work. So that's the motivation behind why we did it.
Right. And Alex, when you got that question, like, did you know what you were getting yourself into?
No, I did not know what I was getting myself into, but I was definitely down to support Spence. And for me, I mean, the mission was so much greater than ourselves in terms of why we were really passionate about doing this. And then there's the bonus of getting to do this with your best friends. So
Yeah.
that was an amazing, incredible opportunity. In fact, I just realized this. We're filming this June
this week?
17th.
Yeah,
I think June 18th was when we summited.
it
wasn't
is.
Oh, it
It is.
was?
So tomorrow is our anniversary. So when you messaged
Wow,
me
that's so
Good
funny.
memory.
about this, I was like, Kilimanjaro, when did I do that again? That was 2012.
2012, June 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was a kid at that point. Still in womb. But yeah, that was 14 years ago.
I'm bad at math, but
14,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
14 years ago.
Wow.
And so my life stage, it's interesting to have this conversation because you doing it at this point in your career, in your life, versus when we did it 12 years ago, being
Yeah.
in a totally different,
Yeah.
life stage. There, as I find myself in this moment of transition and, I'm finding throughout our life, we always experience these times where we're like, okay, hold on, let's pause and let's reassess our life and make sure that we're on the track that we want to be on.
Yeah.
And then it was it was very fortunate to have this opportunity to think back to that climb on Kilimanjaro when those lessons that we learned, they're still relevant,
Right.
even though I was so young.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about them again at a time when, transition is happening and resurfacing like, oh yeah, I was thinking about it again. We actually watched the documentary,
documentary.
that we put together as a part of it.
Very
And so
cool.
it was really fun to think about this again.
I mean, I would love to jump ahead 12 years and 14 years and see what lessons or kind of how it still inspires me. Like, and I love how you really did it for a great cause and a purpose, right? Like I would love to have said that's my story too, but it honestly wasn't. For me, it was more of I was turning 40. So maybe, I don't know, midlife crisis or something. And me and my best friend have always been into any adventure, mostly things that have a bit of a physical challenge component to it. But in kind of leading up to it, it started as that, right? Like celebrating our 40th birthdays together. But in leading up to it, I found myself work-wise in a bit of a hesitation, doubt. I became a mom 3 years ago, so that was also playing part kind of into a change of my identity. And I was just really looking forward to that climb, knowing that it was going to take me out of my regular context. And I was looking forward to what at least my hopes was to feel like knowing who I am again.
Yes.
And I'm happy to kind of report that that it did exactly that and more. But I think we all kind of in our way have that somewhat, call it transformational, but at least impactful experience kind of that we had on that mountain, and that is why we are still talking about it today. What are some of those lessons, or Alex, when you're saying they're still relevant, or Spencer, I think you said something along the same lines. Why are we still talking about it today?
I think as I've been reflecting on this, I don't know if my answer is the same now as it was then,
Right.
but for right now, it's making me think a lot about how humbling an experience like that is. And you kind of mentioned putting yourself in circumstances where you can create the conditions to do some personal transformational work and going in with that intention too.
Yes.
And to be honest, at that time, I don't think I actually went in with that intention of like, this is going to be a personal transformation trip for me. It was like, I'm going to help my friend. We're going to do this together and we're doing it for a cool cause. And now I'm thinking back and I'm like, oh yeah. And bonus, it was an amazingly transformational experience for me. And one of the things I'm thinking about now is how humbling it is.
Yeah.
To do something that humbles you. You know, when you climb Kilimanjaro, it's a level playing field. It doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter your status, nothing. Everyone is going to struggle at some point climbing that mountain.
Yeah. The mountain doesn't care who you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you kind of, I think when you're in that situation where you are humbled, and I remember us on the mountain at points after a couple of days of grueling, because there's some grueling parts of that,
Totally.
especially Spence, as you were climbing on your hands, because the chair wouldn't work through that terrain. You know, we'd be just so tired at the end of the hike, and we'd look up, and the mountain looked like it was all the way over there. Like we weren't even close.
You weren't
like,
even close to the summit.
We're not even on it.
No.
we were
No.
like, what? I thought we were on the mountain. The mountain's over there, and you see how far you actually are from summiting. It's moments like that which are very humbling.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to create those kinds of experiences because it makes you really reflect on what's important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love how you said it when we were prepping for this episode. Like the mountain humbles you, and it humbles everyone. Like it makes you realize that you're just this one kind of small clog in a wheel or like piece in this world.
makes you
There's
feel
so
very
much
vulnerable.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability, I think, is something that you talk about too a lot, Spencer. So what were some of your like most important lessons?
Yeah,
Or
you know,
insights?
looking back, no, I just wrote a book, and I hadn't talked I talk about Kilimanjaro in my speeches, but I've never like really talked about our experience
Right.
outside of that. And one of the things that I talk about is I went back and read my journal from Kilimanjaro.
Oh, yeah.
And my first journal entry, and it was the first time in my life. I'm not a wildly stressful person, but I can be anxious about things, and because of my disability, I'm constantly having to think ahead about accessibility. And as I wrote in my journal on the plane, I'm feeling very calm because it was the first time where my purpose and where I wanted to go with my life was all in alignment at the exact same time. And so that was the first time I've ever really felt that and was able to recognize it. And then you get to the mountain and that just gets destroyed because of what happens on the mountain. But like one of the big things that we took away is, you know, I knew that not having any legs, it was going to be a challenge for me. And that was the whole purpose of inviting my friends to come with me. And I did. I needed them. Like the first 7 days, I needed them every day, physically and emotionally. But what I didn't anticipate and what I didn't think about was that when we got to the day where we were going to summit, which, you know, it's like you walk all night up to the top, and then
it's like 16 hours or something.
and it's cold and it's so uncomfortable and the altitude is awful. They got sick and I didn't. And the joke is because I'm 2'7" tall, and that's why I didn't get sick. That's not actually real.
You were not high enough?
Science
he
doesn't
wasn't
support
quite
that.
high enough.
I don't think science supports that indeed.
It doesn't. But for the first time, I didn't anticipate that they would need my help.
Right.
And so that was one of the big things I took away is for us to be successful, I needed their help and they needed my help. And there was this like beautiful exchange back and forth of that. And then the other thing for me is just before we climbed, I had a colleague say, what if you don't make it? And that had like never entered my mind before. Also, our boss was like, you have to get to the top. But I never thought about it. And normally I think that would scare me. But when I thought about it, I was like, then we just bring back whatever we learned.
Right.
Like, I think that's what it is. So I learned a lot about myself and then this importance of support.
Yeah, and vulnerability, how it goes both ways. You may have been thinking about your own vulnerability, but all of a sudden you were the strongest one there.
Totally.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was the one puking on the top of the mountain.
You were.
And Spencer was dragging me up. Like, I totally did not expect that. That was a big surprise, was how the roles would have to switch throughout. And we switched quite a bit. Like,
we did.
And it's so much more than a physical challenge, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is mental and spiritual. And that's what makes it so special. And I want to be conscious of like, this isn't a podcast to encourage everyone to go climb a mountain.
No.
But it's about I mean, if you can, great, highly recommend. But it's about putting yourself in those conditions where you are physically or mentally or spiritually, you're really challenging yourself. You're doing something that's a little bit scary, and how beneficial and important that is, especially if you're in a position of leadership where things can get really comfortable. You can fall into traps all the time because there's so many expectations. There's what is a leader supposed to do? I have all these responsibilities on me. And, you get in the trap of busyness. Sometimes it's one of my things is figuring out this trap of always being so busy. And so putting yourself in these kind of situations gives you the perspective. Yeah. It gives you perspective again to find a way out of your trap. So that was something that was really important to us too.
Yeah. And I mean, I recognize a lot of what both of you are saying, like the vulnerability, and the summit not being the goal. Like, I think it's something that my friend and I had talked about because our like tour guide or whatever encouraged us to have that conversation of like, what if one of you is not able to reach the top and the other one is? Are you going to continue or not?
Right.
And like, even thinking about that ahead of time, you might answer it one way, but I had not realized that once we were on that mountain, I was like, I don't know. It truly depends on exactly the moment that happens and how you feel and like how vulnerable that moment is going to be. Curious, before we kind of go more into like the leadership lessons and kind of drawing that parallel, what role did the guides play in your trip? Because that was something that I was left really inspired with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was so enamored by what they could do, meaning like they would carry our entire camp way ahead of us and it would be set up by the time we got there. We were, filming a documentary at the same time.
Yeah.
And so they would take a memory card back down the mountain every day to the person that was at the hotel at the base of Kilimanjaro. It wasn't the same person every day, but like someone would go back down and deliver that footage. And then at some points, like these guys were sick too. So the porters literally wrapped me in a blanket and carried me on their back to like get me up the mountain. And, there's a song that they always sing that's very East Africa that they sing. And we all sort of know, having lived there or spent time there. And so they like really help keep your spirits going. But just the idea that these guys can do this all the time, every day, and it's like no big deal was like so mind blowing to me. And the care that they gave us was like so wonderful. I felt so cared for and so safe and comfortable, which you just never know,
Yeah. And, to add to that too, because I that really resonated with me. I noticed that very much is that I'm having a hard time. And then I look over and like our porters are carrying like
20 kilos on their heads.
On their back, every day. Like they're doing so much more. And they probably do this multiple times. Like this is their second climb of the week. Like they're incredible. And so it made me think a lot about the heroes behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They are truly like such humble heroes behind the scenes who made the whole experience possible. And they're unsung heroes. They're working, behind the curtains to make sure you have an amazing experience. But to me, it was very inspiring and touching to see them at work, and that was an amazing lesson for me too, in terms of, my own leadership and what it means to be human too. Is like the unsung heroes, always looking for them. Where are they? Who are they? What are they doing? And recognizing them and seeing them. That was a really important part of my experience too.
It is. And I think in general, one of the things that was really important to me when I was writing my book is there was a chapter on like the myth of the self-made person. And I'm like, it's not real. And anybody that says they're self-made is a liar. Like there was someone or multiple people that have helped you behind the scenes to get there. So we didn't climb Kilimanjaro on our own. The only reason we were successful is because of these incredible people that know the terrain and know what to do when things get difficult. So like it was this very beautiful exchange of interdependence of like we don't get there by ourselves, which is, I think, a metaphor for everything.
Yeah.
Anybody who says so is like, again, I think you're a liar.
Yeah.
Right.
And our guide too, so like shout out to Paul
Yeah.
from Mountain Climbing Adventures. They're the group that brought us up. They did an amazing job preparing us, but having a guide there as well to motivate us, to help us understand where we are, where we need to go, what the plan is. That was a really important, amazing piece of leadership to observe as well through our journey.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot about like facilitative leadership and human-centered leadership, and to me, like those guides and the porters, they were just living and breathing that, right?
Yeah.
Without any formal leadership education or whatever, like they are the natural heroes behind the scenes. And what stood out to me was like, especially in those really hard moments, they knew exactly what I was going through. So where I was kind of I found it really challenging kind of to be that vulnerable, right? Like I'm usually the strong person who pushes through or whatever, right? And but I was so uncomfortable, especially on that summit day. Like you saw people puking right beside the path. They were being asked the questions that I knew were like, oh, they're trying to assess whether he's actually kind of experiencing altitude sickness. There were trauma helicopters that had picked up people days before. So it just makes you very like feel very vulnerable. And still in that moment, I was like, I'm feeling all these kind of things. Like I'm feeling a little bit of nausea. I'm feeling a little bit of this. Should I tell them or should I just push through? Right. And I hadn't even said a word. I just called out the name of the guide and he was like, yeah, I know. Next rock, we're going to stop. And that will stick with me forever. Like that to me is a piece of human-centered leadership, right? Knowing exactly what the people that follow you, what they need in which moment without even like having to ask for it. Yeah. What we talked a little bit about kind of that status and performance and the trap that a lot of leaders I think often step into of like trying to continuously perform and reach the next milestone. And how can we reframe that kind of with the lessons or the insights that we took from Kili? Why do leaders even do it? Like why are we all thinking we need to reach the next big thing?
I mean, I'll jump in here for a second
please,
if you don't mind. I think one of the things, and as a disabled person, we live in a world where often success and value is based on how much your body can produce.
Right.
And I would personally like to redefine like that whole thing. Because we've now sort of bought into this like hustle culture of like, if you're not working hard, if you're not producing every day, if you're not making sure that you're getting to the next step or doing the next thing or getting ahead of the next trend, then your business is going to fail. I know those things are important, so I'm not diminishing those things. But on the flip side, like your value and your success doesn't have to be measured by how much your body or your business can produce.
Right.
I think if you've got a solid product or message and there's a purpose behind it, I think that's why Kilimanjaro was so successful for us. There was an actual purpose. It could have been really easy for me to continue to speak and build this big profile of like this very great speaker and really lean into that. But I didn't want pride and ambition to become the goal. And so that's why I wanted to switch to, there's got to be a meaning to it, or it doesn't make sense. It's just going to be ambition. I just don't think that for me wasn't going to be my definition of success.
Success, yeah. And I what I'm thinking as you're speaking is kind of how much your body can produce. And like maybe your brain your brain obviously is part of your body, but I think it is the production at large, right? Like it's why is success measured by producing something?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Maybe it's about impact.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it's about, you get to decide what that is, but I would love for all of us to challenge in business in general the idea of what value and success means. And it doesn't have to be, we made $1 billion. I get that we live in a capitalist society and money's important, but like, maybe it's not.
Is it the only thing?
Yeah.
And how are you feeling about that, Alex? Because I think you were referencing early on in our conversation, kind of finding that realignment with what matters to you. Like,
yes. Okay. let me try and answer your first question about, because
I'm known
it's a
for
really
this. I asked 20 questions at the same
no,
time.
but this is a really important one. I'm going to try to keep it not so meta, but
You
like,
can do it.
but in Spencer's book, chapter 2,
Right.
no, in your book, you
Feel
actually,
free
I
to
do want
plug
to bring
it.
this, I need to plug this in because
Thank you.
it's a relevant thing, which is the trap.
Yeah.
You talk about the trap.
Mm-hmm.
The trap is when you fall into this joyless experience of having to meet expectations that are put on you, and then you find yourself very unhappy and misaligned.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that trap for leaders, what does it look like? And we've all probably experienced it at some point.
Yeah.
There's a heavy emphasis on delivering results when you're in leadership positions, and a heavy emphasis on achievement.
Yeah.
You have to keep achieving. And it can lead to a trap where achievement becomes the only thing that you actually begin to base your own value on
On
your
that
ability to achieve and produce results.
Yeah.
And that becomes a leadership trap. I've seen it, I've experienced it. And what ends up happening is you keep chasing that need to achieve. And achieving and results is obviously important.
Yeah.
But when it becomes everything, problems begin to happen. And, in some cases, not all cases, but in many cases, when you become obsessed with just achieving something, doing something, getting the results, it is like, what's that? What's motivating it? Where's it coming from?
Yeah.
You're trying to fill some sort of need or gap
Yeah.
that you're good enough.
Right.
And always having to prove yourself and always having to meet some kind of expectation, you end up losing yourself. So getting out of the trap, you talk about this in your book, but it's like breaking free.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about like, how do you find yourself again and look at measures of success or, from a different perspective, a more holistic perspective. And I think that that's really important in this day and age,
Yeah.
specifically when we think about what does good leadership look like. It has to go beyond achieving results. And it is about those who are in positions that are able to bring out their own humanity and serve others and help others around them bring their humanity to work and connect their passion to what they're doing. Like there's this whole other aspect beyond, and actually, the science will show that when you do that, the passion, it will translate into better results, anyways.
Yeah.
But, my hope, and, we can't get through any freaking conversation without talking about AI, but I have to plug it in here that like, yes, we are in a huge transitional phase right now where the knowledge economy is transitioning.
Yeah.
And my hope is that we're moving into knowledge will be easy. Expertise will come easier.
It's not the
Which
thing
means
that differentiates you anymore.
Exactly. It doesn't differentiate you anymore. We can now as leaders focus on
The
other
real
things.
things,
And that other thing is, how good are you at developing teams, at creating trust, at creating collaboration, at serving others, helping them bring out their best, like bringing out that aspect of your leadership. I think that's going to be really crucial. I think that the age of AI can, if we choose as leaders to, take care of a lot of the knowledge issues, expertise issues,
Yeah.
and allow us to focus more time and energy on the things that make us human and help us move from an age of knowledge into an age of wisdom, an age of humanity.
Yeah.
And so that's my hope for how things kind of transition and move.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, so I'm going to draw the parallel back to the mountain now, because that now that you talk about it in that way, to me, something like that happened on the mountain too. Like it was, I think I'm the person who would be the first to lead, to always know things better, to always have the answer, right? And I think I may have even surprised like my parents and my friends, because the single most heard advice that I got going into the Kili was like, you do listen to the guides, right? Don't do your own thing. And I was like, why can people say it? I mean, I got where it came from, but it felt so different to me, especially when on the mountain, because I knew like, I have no clue what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I need someone else to literally guide me here.
Yeah.
And I was more than happy to just follow. But I think it is that kind of part of leadership too, to be able to recognize when you don't have all the answers. And I see that as a strong parallel with the world of, or kind of the age of AI too. Like, I don't believe, maybe no one ever had, but especially now, no one single person in the room will have all the answers.
Right.
It's not about that,
Yeah.
right? It's about creating that right support system and finding the right people around you and the right answers. And the answers are somewhere around you.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you don't have to have them
Right.
anymore.
And hopefully that gets
I would like to believe
revalued.
you never had to, but I think
Yeah.
that is the trap that we continuously find
Right,
ourselves into. Like, we want to solve things for people, right?
Yeah.
Love that. You started off with something important, Alex. We're not doing this episode to motivate everyone to climb Kili. Although, if you're somewhat considering it, I would still say do it. But what we are doing is kind of trying to encourage people to take that time to reflect, acknowledge how important that can be, to step away from your day to day. So for the audience that's listening, like what is the message here? Like how can they recreate this moment of transformation without going up 19,000 feet?
What do you think, Spence?
I mean, what I have found for my own personal journey, you know, I grew up in the United States. I worked in corporate America, and I was so disappointed with where my life had gone. And I was so upset that I chased the North American dream and it didn't work out. And there was no manual to say, this is what you do when your dreams don't come true and when things don't work out. And that was when a friend of mine invited me to go on my first trip to Kenya.
Yeah.
So that was like my first Kilimanjaro. It's
Right.
like, oh, I'm getting outside of my comfort zone. I'm doing something I've never done before, because what it does is it forces me to be present in my body and to listen to what's happening. And that's when I started to feel like, oh, suddenly I was becoming passionate about international development. I knew nothing about it before then, but suddenly I had all these questions and was really excited about it. And so, you know, one of the chapters in my book is discover who you are somewhere else. And that doesn't mean you have to go to Tanzania or Kenya or
Right.
Kilimanjaro, but it could be maybe you take a sewing class.
Yeah.
Maybe you pick up a new sport. Maybe you take a class on AI. Like whatever that thing is for you, is to just break up your routine and get yourself out of that day to day and to slow down and to get still. Maybe it is meditation, whatever that is. But there's a voice in here. It's always there.
Yeah.
But it's whether we choose to listen to it or not. And that will tell you what you need if you take the time to understand it. And I think for me, that's what I did, is every time that I got outside of my comfort zone and did something different, whether it was large or small, that's where the magic happened. That's where I discovered all of these things about myself.
So doing new things,
Yes.
things that you've never done before,
Exactly.
outside of your comfort
Outside of
zone.
your
Doesn't
comfort
have to
zone.
be a
I think
different
that's it.
culture, different
No, I
country.
think
Like
that's
cold plunges are
Yeah,
the thing.
it's a great
like
example.
for
I was
me,
just gonna
right?
say,
Like
That sounds awful, but
it
it's a great
just-
example.
No thanks.
it just
Not for me.
forces you
but,
to just be with your body, and that's it. Like
That's
there
right.
is no room to
Put me in a
to
sauna
do
and I'll
something
create
else.
the
There we
same
go.
experience.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Not in the cold plunge.
I
Yeah.
challenge you, Alex. This-
But you know, to your point, it's actually two things. I feel like for me, it's find something that really challenges you. That can be running a marathon, can be doing a cold plunge, it could be a new habit. Read a book every day, but read a book every day. I wish.
Some people can do
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
my wife can do
I
that.
was
I'm
gonna say,
jealous.
yeah.
But anyways, it's do something uncomfortable, create the space for it, and watch yourself grow through it.
Through it.
And the other like side of that is also the mundane, not the mundaneness, but the undistracted silence that you get when you're climbing that mountain. There's no phones. There's no, you're just focused on one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And this is cliche, but it's like, it's not about achieving the top. It's about the journey. But there's obviously some real truth to that, you know, when you eliminate those distractions and you find something that allows you the space to listen to yourself, listen to your gut, then that's a really important part of slowing down sometimes, because life is busy, life is fast. And that was something that really, I think, was impactful for us, was that silence and the dedicated daily simplicity of one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And just to make this practical as well for leaders, Jim Collins, I love his work.
Yeah.
Great by choice. Talks about a very relevant example of these two teams that were racing to the first team to reach the South Pole.
Right. Yeah.
A Norwegian
we talked about
team
this.
and a British team. You've heard about this. And they had two different strategies.
Yeah.
One team, the British team, they basically waited for the right conditions, and then they would go as far as they could.
Yeah.
And then they would pause. And if there was a storm, or if it was like they weren't feeling well or whatever, they would rest and wait until the right timing, and then they'd just sprint again. The Norwegian team took a very different approach. They took things like slow and steady, but every day. They determined, no matter what the conditions are, even if we could go further, we're only going to go this far. Yeah. And if the conditions are terrible, we're going to push through it, and we're still going to meet that minimum threshold. And so it was that rigorous discipline every day that ultimately led to their success of that Norwegian team, where the other team, sadly and tragically, didn't even return from that climb. Yeah, they didn't make the expedition.
Yes.
So
the end of the story is always very hard.
It's always, I don't know. Yeah, how do you? I don't want to use that as the example, but like
the lesson,
it's such an important lesson of daily disciplined rigor into the things that matter most, one foot in front of the other, and in a business context, the Jim Collins calls it the 20-mile march. Yeah. What is your 20-mile march? Every day we do the 20-mile march. We do these disciplined 3, 4, 5 activities that we know will lead to our success.
Yeah.
That's what you get disciplined about. That's the one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you are, it doesn't mean that you're rigid to those key activities. You have to always assess, are those the right activities? Right. But it's that discipline that leads ultimately to the success. So that was one other important lesson.
And the notion of slowing down to speed up, right? And I think, again, the mountain just teaches you this in such a literal fashion. Like I had groups that continuously kind of passed us, like they were like the British team. They went really fast for as long as they could, and then an hour later we would see them all stand there taking a break, whereas we were just continuously constant pace, hardly any breaks, slow, steady state.
Yeah, the turtle and the hare.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it's crazy to literally experience it like that. But the analogy to business obviously is kind of that rigorous discipline of doing a couple of activities.
Simplicity,
Simplicity, but doing it every day. I hate to say it, but we are getting close to kind of having to wrap up this conversation. I know we could have gone for a couple more hours, but if I think back through our conversation, like some of the key lessons are around kind of that performance, production, leadership trap, right? It is not all about achievement. Like what is... I think a question that stuck with me is kind of what is left of you and your identity once you strip away your role or your accomplishments. And that is ultimately where you need to look for kind of what is truly bringing you happiness in your life. There is a key lesson around humility and vulnerability. And if we kind of then draw the parallel to leadership, you don't have to have all the answers as a leader. you probably are a better leader if you're able to rely on the right people around you and kind of create experiences and ultimately achievements together. And then there is this last piece that we talked about, call it recovery or putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, the silence, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but taking yourself out of your day-to-day rhythms, try to do something new, cut out the noise to really be able to listen to that voice inside. I think that's something that we can leave our listeners with at large, kind of, so that question of, what if your job disappeared tomorrow? What's remaining? Like, who are you? The joy, like, when did you last do something that brought you true joy? Or like, what were those things that brought you joy as a kid? And how often do you still do them? If not, make that your challenge, because what our challenge for our listeners is going to be is think about how in the next 30 days you can create your own like mini Kilimanjaro moment, whether that is taking a sewing class, Alex is going to take a cold plunge, meditating, or whatever you can come up with that you feel like will strip you off of kind of your day-to-day, strip you away from your day-to-day disciplines and routines and allow you to really kind of sit with what's left. And as an extra for our listeners, because Spencer has obviously been talking about his book, Breaking Free, there's a lot of leadership lessons and life lessons at large to take away from that. So we are happy to be able to give away a copy of the book, a signed copy of the book by Spencer. But in return, we would love for you to share kind of what your 30-day kind of, or your mini Kilimanjaro moment in the next 30 days is going to be. So if you want to participate, follow Sidekick on LinkedIn, subscribe to a newsletter, but most importantly, share kind of your mini Kilimanjaro moment in the comments. And we will see you next time. But before we leave, Spencer, Alex, would obviously love to thank you for joining me on the podcast. And for our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, just at Spencer to the West. And then my website is spencertothewest.com. That's where you can find me.
Great, Alex.
I'm on none of those platforms. He's the content creator.
Well, Spencer.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fine.
LinkedIn, Alex Meers, and they will find you. Thanks again. Thanks for our listeners, and we'll see you next time.